We are into the next 2 chapters of Esther. It's quite the pivot point in the story. And the reason why I wanted the youth out here is because we are doing chapters 6, 7. Yeah, there's only a few you got that one, but that's all right. They would have totally understood. They say it literally every day. It's a rap song. It's okay. That would have been a great response, an eye roll. So I have a picture up here, I think, because I asked for it about the last second possible, but I have a painting up here. It's entitled Checkmate. It was painted a couple of years ago, like 18-something. And this picture depicts someone playing the devil, and the devil has come to checkmate. With the exception that far later on, after the painting was painted, a world-class chess champion, that's not me, came to view this table, and I'm guessing if it was me, I would take the table and I would set it up exactly how they have it played out currently. And I would look at both sides. I love the little Disney Pixar short where the old man is playing chess, and then he gets up out of his chair and walks around the table, and he sits back down and he plays himself in chess. That's a fun little Pixar one. But I would imagine that they pulled this board out and they set it up as it was, and he looked and he looked and he looked. And after some time, he found there was a mistake in this painting. That after all, the devil doesn't have checkmate. The king in this painting has one more move. Painting has one more move that he can make. The young person playing the devil, after all, wasn't out of options. What looked like he was done, and once you have checkmate, there is literally nothing more you can do. You are going to lose this game. After all, isn't. There's a surprising victory found on this table. Now let's jump into Esther 6. And we know from the recent parts of the story that the king, Xerxes, has made all sorts of really wonderful decisions under the influence of alcohol. He has defiled his wife. He has let her go. He has found a new wife in Esther who is Jewish but conceals her identity. We find that her uncle, who they're not clearly connected to other people, but they certainly still have a connection. We find that her uncle is promoted into the kingdom, but this one guy, Haman, what? Oh, okay, good. This one guy, Haman, he is promoted to the second in command of essentially the world at the time, the kingdom of Persia. And this Haman certainly deserves a boo. This Haman is a wicked, wicked man. His friends and his wife are wicked, wicked people. And that's around where we pick the story up. That night, the king had trouble sleeping. Now, Haman is looking for a way to get rid of Mordecai. They've gone through the first banquet, and the night of the first banquet, the king had trouble sleeping. So he ordered an attendant to bring the book of the history of his reign so it could be read to him. In those records, he discovered an account of how Mordecai, had exposed the plot of Bigthana and Teresh, 2 of the eunuchs who guarded the door to the king's private quarters. They had plotted to assassinate King Xerxes. What reward or recognition did we ever give Mordecai for this? The king asked. His attendants replied, nothing has been done for him. Who is that in our outer court? The king inquired. As it happened, Haman had just arrived at the outer court of the palace to ask the king to impale Mordecai on the pole he had prepared. In Haman's mind, everything is going according to plan. He has all the power, except for the king, who he kind of overlooks and thinks that he even has more power than the king. Everything is going according to plan. He has set up the poll. He is going to get Mordecai out of his life once and for all. So everything will be hunky-dory going on. Well, the king is reminded. You know, Esther didn't say, remember that guy Mordecai? He saved your life. Do you remember that guy? Maybe we should think, no, that wasn't from Esther. Esther simply created a banquet and invited them too. And she was pretty disguised about what she was doing. In my taking of that, I really think that Esther was kind of testing the waters, because just simply appearing before the king as she did was so incredibly dangerous for her life. And I think she was testing the waters, and she had a good methodical plan, but it all could fall apart at any moment, because we know that King Xerxes makes wonderful decisions at all times in his life. So the attendants replied to the king, Haman is out in the court. Bring him in, the king ordered. So Haman came in, and the king said, what should I do to honor a man who truly pleases me? Haman thought to himself, whom would the king ever wish to honor more than me? I am so important to you, the king, to this establishment of the Persian Empire. And he thought about this. Somebody who pleases the king. Well, let's set this up really well for myself. Whom would the king wish to honor more than me? So he replied, if the king wishes to honor someone, he should bring out one of the king's own royal robes, as well as a horse that the king himself has ridden, one with a royal emblem on its head. Let the robes and the horse be handed over to one of the king's most noble officials, and let him see that the man whom the king wishes to honor is dressed in the king's robes and led through the city square on the king's horse. Have the officials shout as they go, this is what the king does for someone he wishes to honor. Excellent, the king said to Haman. And you know exactly what Haman is thinking right now. The king likes my idea. This is great. This is going to be amazing. I'm going to be promoted amongst everybody. Billboards out there, bumper stickers. Haman is the coolest guy in the world. Excellent, the king said to Haman. Quick, take the robes and my horse and do just as you have said for Mordecai the Jew. What? Say that one more time, because I didn't quite hear you say Haman correctly. Excellent, the king said to Haman. Quick, take the robes and my horse and do just as you have said for Mordecai the Jew, who sits at the gate of the palace. Leave out nothing you have suggested. So Haman took the robes and he put them on Mordecai. I can only picture Haman, who it's not just a dislike at this point. It's not just well, this guy refuses to bow down to me, but that's all right. I mean, it's just one guy. No, he has formulated his opinion on him. He is his arch enemy. His entire existence at this point is exclusively to get rid of Mordecai. That is his entire existence. So Haman took the robes and he put them on Mordecai. He placed him on the king's own horse, and he led him through the city square, shouting, this is what the king does for someone he wishes to honor. Afterward, Mordecai returned to the palace gate, but Haman hurried home, dejected and completely humiliated. When Haman told his wife Zeresh and all his friends what had happened, his wise advisors and his wife said, Since Mordecai, this man who has humiliated you, is of Jewish birth, you will never succeed in your plans against him. It will be fatal to continue opposing him. The wise friends. Last week we saw them come up with some pretty awful things as a plan to get rid of Mordecai. But they're not experiencing the anger. They're not experiencing this hatred that is so deeply welled inside of Haman. They're just a peripheral. They can see past their own emotions. They can see past what Haman is feeling right now. And they say, Haman, seemed like a really great idea to get rid of this guy, but it's not going to work out for you. You should probably rethink this. Since Mordecai, this man who has humiliated you, is of Jewish birth, you will never succeed in your plans against him. It will be fatal to continue opposing him. While they were still talking, the king's eunuch arrived and quickly took Haman to the banquet Esther had prepared. Oh, that's right. Esther had created this plan. There was a plan in place to have multiple banquets so she could test the waters. And even though the first time I would be so tempted that when I approached the king and the king said, listen, Esther, I love you. Ask anything of me. I'll even give you half of the palace. I'll give you half of the kingdom. Whatever, that's essentially saying, whatever you ask for, I will give to you. I would be so tempted to say, kill Haman. Right in his very presence. Because it would be so amazing. But she sticks to her plan. She stays the course. And as she stays the course, she allows for God to do his thing. She brings in, she doesn't do this. This is God. This is King Xerxes not being able to sleep. And what more self-appreciating than to ask for the history of your reign to be read aloud to you. Also, good way to fall asleep too, I guess. So the king and Haman went to Queen Esther's banquet. If I had to imagine, Haman is not exactly overly confident at this point in his life. On the second occasion, while they were drinking wine, seems to be a theme, the king again said to Esther, "Tell me what you want, Queen Esther. What is your request? I will give it to you, even if it is half the kingdom." Queen Esther replied, "If I have found favor with the king, and it pleases the king to grant my request, I ask that my life and the lives of my people will be spared." And I really have to believe here, based on the whole story, King Xerxes is not following anything going on. His mind is not in any way, shape, or form in the know of what is happening. Queen Esther, what is your request? I will give it to you even if it is half of the kingdom. Queen Esther replied, "If I have found favor with the king and it pleases the king to grant my request, I ask that my life and the lives of my people will be spared. For we had merely been sold as slaves, I could remain quiet for what would be too trivial a matter to warrant disturbing the king." "Who would do such a thing?" King Xerxes demanded. "Who would be so presumptuous as to touch you?" Esther replied, "The wicked Haman. He is our adversary and our enemy." Haman grew pale with fright before the king and queen. Then the king jumped to his feet in rage, and we know he makes great decisions when he's drunk and enraged, and went out into the palace garden. Haman, however, struck a slightly different note here at this point in his life. He stayed behind to plead for his life with Queen Esther, for he knew that the king intended to kill him. In despair, he fell on the couch where Queen Esther was reclining just as the king was returning from the palace garden. The king explained, "Will he even assault the queen right here in the palace before my very eyes?" And as soon as the king spoke, his attendants covered Haman's face, signaling his doom. Then Harbona, one of the king's eunuchs, said, "Haman has set up a sharpened pole that stands 75 feet tall. In his own courtyard, he intended to use to impale Mordecai, the man who saved the king from assassination. Then impale Haman on it," the king ordered. So they impaled Haman on the pole he had set up for Mordecai, and the king's anger subsided. Haman's in checkmate. He's got it figured out. Haman has checkmated Mordecai. Mordecai's life is in grave danger. Everything is going according to plan. He has got all the power. He's got all the preference with the king, except for one thing. Mordecai, not in the moment, not when he's most needed, not at the time where his life is gravely in danger. No, long before. He did the right thing. He lived his life in a way that was pleasing and honoring to God, even in a foreign land that didn't believe in the same God. He stood up, and he stood up again, and he stood up again, and he stood up again. I marked here back in chapter 3, if I can find it. Then the palace officials at the king gate asked Mordecai, "Why are you disobeying the king's command?" They spoke to him day after day, but still he refused to comply with this order. So they spoke to Haman about this. This whole discrepancy between Mordecai not bowing down to Haman doesn't even come from Haman, which is probably partially what makes Haman so enraged. Because Haman's out there doing his thing, and the palace guards notice that someone's not bowing down as they're supposed to do. And they have a conversation with him. It's not just one time, it's over and over. Because Mordecai does not bow down to other humans. Mordecai saves his reverence only for God. And these people come to Haman, they tell him, "There's this guy out there." And he just gets tunnel vision. His anger just wells up inside of him. He's only able to focus in on that one person. And because of his tunnel vision, because he allows his emotions to completely overrun who he is as a human, he doesn't see the peripheral. He doesn't see what's going on around. He doesn't see how little things are working. He doesn't see who Mordecai really truly is. He thinks he's checkmated him. He thinks he's won. And it's not always from our actions. It's not always the things that we do that save the day. You may feel like you're in checkmate. You may feel like you're down. You may feel like you're in a place where you have no moves left. I've been in that place where I try to figure it out. I push through as hard as I can. I do every single thing. I call all the friends. I call all the people. I get all the advice. I learn how to patch a roof, or I learn whatever it is. I try to figure out with my own skills and abilities. Yeah, they're God-given, but I just use my brain. How can I do this? Sometimes the moment you relax, say, "God, I don't know what to do anymore. I need you in this moment. I'm in checkmate. I'm done for." God provides a way out. It may seem like checkmate, but there's one more move that the king can make. And he makes it in our favor. What we've seen so far from Esther and from Mordecai is their truth to who they are at their core. They maintain that throughout their life. Do they live their lives perfect? No. God isn't looking for us to be absolutely perfect people. In fact, usually the ones that seem like they're absolutely perfect people aren't. God is looking for us, regular human beings that live a life of difficulty, of amazing times, of slip-ups. Put your faith in who God is. Believe in what the Word says, the rules and by which we're to shape our lives. But more than all of that, that we believe in the name of who Jesus is. Right? Mordecai and Esther don't have a Jesus yet. He's still to come. What they know is who this God is. And in such a trying situation as being in a foreign land, away from everything that your homeland is, to stand up for what you believe and to stay true to who you are, they allow God to work. And they continue to do the next right thing in their life. So even when we find ourselves in checkmate, rest in God's presence. Rest in the ability of God to do things that are unfathomable here on earth. He can make that next right move. And you continue to do the next right thing. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, as we close today and are coming to the end of this book, what a turning point in the book. Evil appears to be winning. There's times in my life where I just feel like no matter what I do, I can't get myself ahead. I can't move past where I am today. I get stuck. And it can feel like the evils of life are overpowering the good. Sometimes you allow us to get into that position so that we can truly rest in who you are. Once I have exhausted all of the options that I personally have, I have nothing left but to trust in you. Sometimes it is in that moment that you do your most amazing work. We're not always found in checkmate. We're not always down in the hardest, difficult places. But help us to do the next right thing at all times in our life. Not that we do it perfectly, but the most inner core of who we are is grounded and found in you. Thank you for being a God that cares, loves, provides a shield of mercy and a shield of grace over us today. That you're a God that loves each and every one of us here in this earth so much that you sent your Son to die on a cross. Help us to place our faith and be found in who you are. In your name.